Yo, what up guys, it's ARTFX and today we're gonna do the first video in which we're gonna look at the Soundtoys 5 bundle. Let's get to it. So, I have Ableton open right here and today we're gonna look at the Crystallizer effect that comes with the Soundtoys 5 bundle. Now, the Crystallizer effect is a granular echo synthesizer. Well, that's basically how they call it. But of course it's not a real synthesizer because it's an effect plugin, so it still needs to have something that you feed into it for it to generate any sound. It's not like a synth where you can just create something from scratch. So a few of the people behind Soundtoys Crystallizer actually worked on a device, which is a hardware device called the Eventide H3000. This one had a particular algorithm built into it, and that algorithm was called, let me check, reverse shift. And this particular algorithm was first used, or I should say was made famous by a sound designer called Andrew Schlesinger. So what he did is he created this amazing sound using this algorithm, and from that a particular preset was born, which is called, I think it was Crystal Echoes. Now, because of the really interesting sound that that preset had, a lot of people used it, and it's actually an effect that has been heard on so many famous records. So I have Crystallizer open right here, and let's get to it. Let's talk about what this thing actually does. Crystallizer is pretty much, you could pretty much compare it to a delay, but a really interesting one. It's a delay with kind of like a granular sound to it. So let's go over the knobs real quick. You of course have your dry-wet knob right here, which basically switches from a dry signal, which is the unaffected signal, to a wet signal, which is the fully affected signal, and you can actually make a blend between those. Now, this delay is not really like all the other delays. What this is doing, it's going to take small segments of audio, depending on what you feed into it, and it's going to repeat those little segments of audio. It will play them back in either a mono or stereo way, and then it will also give you the opportunity to pitch shift these repeated delays. So you have a pitch knob right here. That is of course for shifting the affected signal up or down in pitch, which will create really interesting sounds. Then you have the splice knob, and the splice knob, splices are basically these small segments. That's how they call them. They call them a splice, and this will actually give you control over the length of those segments. So you can see if I change this knob, you actually get different values in the little graph below it, and I can use these up and down switches as well, or I could actually click on the min and max values to switch all the way to those. Then you have a delay. The delay value will determine how long it takes before the affected signal comes in. So let's say I want to have the dry signal, and then about an 8th note after that I want the affected signal to come in. You would set this to 1/8 note like it's currently set up, and now it would take 1/8 note before the actual delay starts being heard. Then you have a recycle knob. That recycle knob is pretty much the same as a feedback knob on a delay, so that's pretty much what you would compare it to. Now let's go to the threshold. The threshold, you set that to a particular volume in decibels, and whenever the audio signal goes above that particular threshold, you can then determine what the crystallizer will do. You need to do that with this gate or duck control right here. So when we set this to duck, what is going to happen when the signal goes above the threshold level? When that happens, the crystallizer effect will actually duck away the affected signal, so that's the wet signal. So every time the signal goes above the threshold, we would hear less of the affected signal. If we set this all the way to gate, it does the exact opposite. When the signal comes above the threshold, it will actually increase the volume of the affected signal. So that's kind of like an interesting thing to remember. Now let's go to this switch right here. It says reverse and forward. Now what this is going to do is you have all these splices and it's playing them back. when you set this to reverse, it's actually going to play back these splices in a reversed way. So that's going to create really interesting sounds. For instance, when you have a plucky sound, it will now play back that plucky sound, but reverse. So you get kind of like a sucking effect. You can also play them back normally, just set it to forward and it will just play them back just like a regular delay. MIDI sync, you can sync these values to your MIDI clock, or you can just have them free running. You can just set the values with this right here. So then we have the input and output knobs. These will affect the volume, so we can bring up the volume before it's affected by the crystallizer. That will of course have a big effect on the threshold value right here, because that's set to a particular level. And then we have an output volume, so that will just help us to increase or decrease the volume after the sound has been affected. Right underneath that, you can see we have a tweak knob. When we click that, and that's a really powerful tool in pretty much all the Soundtoys plugins, when you click the tweak knob, you actually dive under the hood of the plugin and you can go even deeper in what it does. So you can see right here we have a pitch offset, so we can actually detune the different splices from each other. So this will actually, it will add some detuning, which is really cool, it gives it a more organic and natural sound. Then we have the splice offset. This is pretty much the same thing as this knob, but it offsets this. So basically we can give a little bit of a random feel to the length of each individual splice. We can do the same for the delay, so we can give the delay a little bit of a random feeling, which is quite interesting as well. Then we have a smoothing knob. Now what the smoothing is going to do, it's basically going to mean every slice, you know, at every single moment when something is played back, it will basically render out one of these small little splices, and between each splice there's a crossfade. The smoothing knob will actually control the length of that crossfade. So right now it's set to 20 milliseconds, so that's really short. When we set it all the way up, it's exactly 2 seconds. So that's really interesting. We can really do crazy stuff with that. Then we've got a low cut and a high cut. Low cut, of course, cuts out the lows. High cut will cut out the highs. And you can see we have these little cool things. We can switch to min and max. That's pretty helpful as well. So then we have an attack and release knob. This actually affects the threshold. So just like on a compressor, when we have the attack quite high, when something goes above the threshold, it will take some time before the gate or duck is engaged. So that's interesting. Same with the release, it will just take a little bit of time before the gate or duck stops being engaged. So yeah, that's quite some interesting stuff. So then we have a feedback mode, and this comes back to what I said earlier, that Crystallizer plays back the splices in mono or stereo. So when it's set to mixed down here at the feedback mode, all these splices that you're going to hear are going to be mono, because it's basically going to mix the left and right channel together, and then it's going to play those back over both the left and right speakers. So you're going to hear the left channel in both the left and right speaker, and the same for the right channel. So that will turn it into a mono sound. Then we have a dual, and dual mode will mean that the left channel of the splice, the left channel will be played back in the left speaker, and the right channel will be played back in the right speaker, creating a stereo sound. Then we have ping pong, and ping pong is the same as with a delay. It's just going to alternate between the left and right channel. So right here in the ducking mode, it's set to output, and what that's going to mean is that when something goes over the threshold, it ducks away the affected signal before it hits the feedback, which is the recycle. If we set this to feedback, it will do the same, but it will duck away only the feedback signal, so not the affected signal before it hits the feedback, only the signal that comes out after it has hit the feedback. So that's really interesting and really lets you create interesting stuff. Then we have the both, and that will basically duck away both, so it will duck away the fully affected signal. That's basically it for every single knob in this plugin. I could probably go on for this and go in depth a lot more about all of these knobs and what they do, but I think it would make much more sense if we're just gonna play around a little bit with this on a couple of sounds. So I've got 3 sounds right here. I've got a piano, I've got a acoustic guitar, which is a nylon string guitar, and then I've got some strings, pretty much like Hollywood orchestral strings. So we're gonna start with the piano. and I'm gonna go into the presets right here, and right here we have crystals. I'm gonna take one of these, I think. Let's take smooth crystals. Smooth crystals with 3 O's. Let's see how that sounds on our piano. So I'm gonna play you the dry version first. You can see we have Crystallizer down here at the group, then we have Valhalla Room just to give it some reverb, and then we have a little bit of compression to kind of like squash the dynamics a little bit. And without the Crystallizer it sounds like this. So I think you get what I mean with that. So now let's turn on the Crystallizer and see how that sounds. So you can hear how it really changed that sound. Now this is a fully wet signal, so if we bring down the dry wet, we will get more of the original unaffected piano sound back. That will turn it into something much more playable. So we can play around a little bit and check some other interesting ones. Let's try echo pitch. Let's do dark climbing echo. Let's see how that sounds. That's an interesting sound as well. There's quite some interesting stuff in here. I mean, with the Soundtoys plugin, they come with so many presets, so you definitely get a lot of stuff to play around with. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you need to know how this works, even when you don't really know what's going on in this plugin. Just by using the presets and a little bit of tweaking, you can get amazing sounds. And that's why I think plugins like these are so goddamn powerful. You can hear that sounds amazing, and there's a lot of these presets. Melodic, harmonized, that could be cool. Suspension space. Gets a little rumbly. We might have to go in here and do the low cut, bring that up a bit. You can hear we can really get rid of the rumbly signal, the rumbly low end, by just bringing up the low cut. So that's it on a piano. Let's see how this sounds on a guitar, because that's how Andrew Schlesinger, the sound designer who made that particular algorithm, that sound of the algorithm really famous, he tried it out on a guitar, and that's what he really liked using it for. So I'm gonna take one of these crystals. Let's just do original crystals. I think that's gonna be pretty much like the preset on the Eventide H3000, I guess. Let's see how that sounds on the guitar. Now first I'm gonna play you this back again without the crystallizer, and then I'm gonna turn it on and show you how this sounds with the crystallizer on it. Let's get to it. Now if you're wondering where this guitar sound comes from, this is a nylon guitar preset from Omnisphere. I really love Omnisphere. It sounds so goddamn realistic. It's amazing. So now I'm gonna turn on the crystallizer and let's see what this does to our nylon acoustic guitar. So you can hear that sounds amazing. Now we can play around with this. Let's say we want the splices to be a little longer, and we want I want the pitch to go up, delay. I'm gonna make the delay 1/2 note. Let's see, I can bring the recycle down a little bit maybe. Let's see how that sounds. So yeah, that sounds absolutely amazing. Now there's one sound I want to show this on, and that's a string patch that we haven't checked out before. It sounds like this. Let's turn Crystallizer on. That's without, and that's with. Such a big difference. It really makes it sound so different. So yeah, there you have it. I think this sounds absolutely great. Crystallizer is the first effect of the Soundtoys bundle that we have looked at today, and I'm gonna do this for every plugin in the Soundtoys 5 bundle. This plugin has made it so easy for me to make my pads, my strings, my plucky sounds, my acoustic sounds a lot more interesting. It gives it this really lush, shimmering layer that for me was always really difficult to create. I heard it in tracks, but I never really understood how to create it. I had this struggle once when I was trying to create a chime sound, which of course has this same shimmering effect, and I really struggled to get a realistic sounding chime sound, so I actually ended up just sampling it. But looking at this plugin right now, I would have been able to create that effect using this plugin. It's absolutely great. Of course, there's a whole bunch of different effects in here. There's a lot of effect for drums, echoes, so that's just your regular delay kind of things, guitar keys. There's so many interesting stuff in here. If you like this, check them out. I really love the Soundtoys 5 bundle. If you want to see more of these videos, comment, like, and subscribe. That will help me to grow this channel bigger. I've recently went over 2.5 million views on my channel. Now I'm going up to 50,000 subscribers, so that's absolutely great. Yeah, I want to thank you for that. Of course, you guys have always supported me throughout all these years, and that's been a lot of help. Now, that's it for this video. Keep your eye on the channel for more Soundtoys 5 videos. I hope you like this, and I see you back soon. Peace!